Welcome to Pause for Peace with me, Pastor Jule, and we are releasing this podcast to you on Sunday, July 5th, 2026. It is the 6th Sunday after Pentecost. How is that even possible? Time is flying by. And if you are somebody anywhere in the United States of America, you may be aware that as a nation, we have just come through the celebration of our independence 250 years ago, 1776. In this season in the Christian household, these weeks after Pentecost this year, there's an attention that is given to the stories of Genesis, what's known as the historical record, at least according to the way it's been kept in the book of Genesis in Holy Scripture, about these origin stories. These stories of what are known as the patriarchs, and I will add in, we also do have the presence of the matriarchs in this history, this Judeo-Christian history. And it's like coming together for me here on July 5th, this week that stretches out before us, as these Genesis stories have been in the lectionary of readings, though Hillwood Presbyterian Church USA has not necessarily been lifting them up each week in worship, but turning to them in this context of the celebration of the United States of America's 250th anniversary since independence from Great Britain, it's like such an interesting pairing to put these together and to have an understanding of history. One of the things that is really challenging, I think, to the stories of Genesis, but many stories in the Bible, not only the stories of Genesis, but in particular the stories of Genesis, starting in chapter 12, they are putting forth before us some pretty harsh history. Genesis 12, we hear the call of Abraham, who at the time is known as Abram, who takes with him his wife Sarai as they journey forth to the land they are understanding God to be calling them. And no sooner are they on the way than they end up near Egypt. And in Genesis 12, like this originating chapter of Genesis, we already have this great father Abraham, this beautiful patriarch of Judaism and Christianity. We have him handing over Sarah to Pharaoh. This is not a story that is read in the lectionary, I will tell you that. But it is a story that definitely stands out. That on their way, in this process of like these origin stories of us, on their way, Abram actually puts his fear and his comfort over his fidelity to Sarah. He is afraid that because she is so beautiful, when they journey into Egypt, because there's a famine, when they journey into Egypt, the story goes, Abram at the time, he is afraid that because of Sarai's beauty, he will be killed, that the Egyptians will annihilate him in order to take this beautiful woman as their wife, to like add her to their possessions. Do you see my rolling of the eyes? Probably not if you're not listening, if you're only listening to this podcast. But what Abram, this amazing patriarch of Judeo-Christianity, what he does is he concocts a lie. He tells Sarah, he doesn't even ask her, he tells Sarai, listen, they're going to kill me because you are so beautiful. So when we get to Egypt, I am going to hand you over, and the lie that we are going to tell, I'm telling you, when you are in contact with the Egyptians, you tell them you're just my sister. That way they will let me live. There is this little bitty sentence in Genesis 12 that speaks of Abram handing Sarai over to Pharaoh's household. Now, I do not know, well, I kind of know. I do not know entirely what is in Abram's mind. I mean, he literally cares only for himself at this moment in his history. He doesn't care about, handing your wife, handing any woman over to another man is basically like you're going to become, a prostitute to him. You're going to be like pimped out to him in order to save my skin. This story, maybe not being read or taught in children's Sunday school classes, this story is a part of Genesis 12. These beautiful gems don't stop there. Sarcasm, 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 as I speak about beautiful gems. We move on in the story of this Father Abraham, right? This one from whom we all get our ancestral history and Judeo-Christian understandings. Father Abraham, he doesn't really think that the promise that God has given is happening fast enough. He's not really sure that God's got it all together. And so he and Sarai concoct a plan that he will go into her slave Hagar, and he will make a way to conceive their son that will bear their line. Abram goes and impregnates Hagar at Sarai's approval. These are not the finest stories, this story being recorded in Genesis 15, of marital relations, of man-woman dynamics. These are not the finest moments of our ancestral spiritual history. And it gets worse with Hagar, because as there is jealousy that arrives, not only when Hagar conceives, which was what the whole plan was to begin with, let's make this happen on our own instead of waiting for God to fulfill any kind of promises that God has said is going to happen, whatever. We're going to do this on our own accord. And not only is there jealousy that arises between Hagar and Sarah, when Sarah actually does have her own child, when her baby is playing with the son of Abram and Hagar, Ishmael, she's even more enraged and goes to Abram and says, get rid of this child, send him away. These are, again, not the finest moments in our patriarchs and matriarchs' history. It doesn't stop there. We have these stories that go on. In fact, it was just right around the time of Fathering Sunday when the Genesis texts were taking us to the story of Abram, now understanding himself to be called Abraham, taking that son Isaac, who actually came forth from his union with Sarah, whose name was also changed in the process, taking him to be sacrificed. This is actually a story that is recorded in Genesis 22, where Abraham understands that God, Yahweh, is telling him, take your son, your first and only born son, and take him up to the mountain and make of him a burnt offering. Okay, now we don't even have horrible relations between husbands and wives. Now we're getting these, are you kidding me, kind of experiences between fathers and sons. Abram, and yes, we lift him up as being a man of great faithfulness, but Abram actually takes Isaac to the mountain. He literally has the knife over the boy's throat, is about to come down hard and sacrifice his, the body of his one and only son, because he thinks that's what God said to do, when God says, wait, time out. And then it's oh, okay, you've just caused incredible trauma to your child, who all along has been Daddy, where are we going? Daddy, what's the wood for? Daddy, why are you fastening me to this altar. Daddy, why are you starting the wood on fire? Daddy, why are you raising a knife over me? We have trauma instilled in Isaac in this story that is a horrible story. Again, not told in children's Sunday school classes. I should have had like a child rating before I started this podcast, but like this is an intense, horribly traumatic story that is in the scriptures. It's right there in Genesis 22. Okay, in the last full swoop, it's like, wait, time out, Abram. Okay, Abraham, you did what I was asking of you. So like, okay, good. Just let it go. Let it go. Let him go. You do not have to sacrifice your son. There is no way there was entire trust between Isaac and Abraham after that moment. It doesn't stop there, folks. As the stories of Genesis, just these first like 18 stories between like chapter 12 of Genesis all the way to chapter 30 of Genesis, we have more and more stories in the history of this faith ancestry of ours about these like horrible actions that take place. Isaac ends up falling in love with Rebecca when he's sent out to like go find his wife. And then we have like stories of Isaac and Rebecca conceiving, and already in the womb she's got these twins that are vying for power over with each other, Jacob and Esau. We've got stories of Rebecca like being on the side of Jacob and fooling Isaac, and we got stories of Jacob swindling his brother and like getting the birthright away from him. And it goes on because Jacob, who eventually has to flee for his life from his family of origin, ends up with his uncle Laban, his mama's brother, and Laban like fools Jacob and like on his wedding night is given the wrong woman. He wanted beautiful Rachel, but he is given Leah, who is known as, there actually are stories and like commentaries that say like maybe Leah had like lazy eyes or like different colored eyes or whatever it might have been. She was the firstborn, but Jacob was in love with Rachel from the moment he first saw her. He wants Rachel, the younger daughter, and like Uncle Laban is like, sure, dude, but like first I'm going to make you work 7 years for it. And then he actually tricks him. And then when Jacob comes to and realizes he's just consummated the marriage with the wrong woman, which is a whole nother, like, think about that for a little bit. When that finally happens, Laban's like, well, listen, we don't do it that way. You have to marry my firstborn daughter before you get my secondborn daughter. So now you can work another 7 years to get my beloved Rachel. This is all in the history of Genesis. It may make you wonder why read the Bible at all, but part of why I think these stories are there is because they help us to see how important it is to wrestle with our history. History is tricky. You know, it is easy to slip into the way it really never was. It's easy for us to put on a pedestal years gone by and to forget that there is like a lot of shadow side to what actually happened that we no longer remember, or that we pretty up in a nice package, put it on a bow on it, and like call it a beautiful present past. The reality is, the stories of Genesis, at least for those of us in the Judeo-Christian households, do not allow us to be fooled into believing that history is better than today. Keeping before us these stories that are like gruesome, awful, showing us the depths of human depravity in some ways, like keeping before us these stories helps us to wrestle with truth. It helps us to reconcile what we have done. It keeps before us aspects of the past that really do need to come to the light if we are going to move forward into a more holistic, positive future. In that way, perhaps entirely inspired by the Spirit, those who put together the canon of the Bible, especially these stories in the earliest understandings of the Hebrew people, they did not allow us to gloss it all over and make it all a pretty little package of the past. History is tricky, and we have the opportunity to reconcile what has happened, what we have done, so that we will move forward in a new way. So that we will not be those who deny that the beautiful woman is actually our wife. And we're not going to lie and say she is our sister only to save her own skin. Like, maybe we'll never be in a situation just like that. But there are ways that that story of Abram and Sarai in chapter 12 of Genesis makes us look at our own selfishness, makes us look at our own fear, makes us look at the way that we can bail on those that we're bound to the moment it looks like there might be trouble for ourselves. There are ways that we must confront in ourselves the turmoil that we have in these relationships that come forth woman between woman, how we can be pitted in jealousy, especially when all of our attention is based on what we believe to be the scarcity of a man's attention to us. There are tomes written about the lack of sisterhood that is alive and well in cultures based on the principles of the patriarchy. There are ways that we must confront how we will not live in union with our brothers and our sisters, with this great big family of the world. The stories of Genesis keep before us the truth of who we are, the dynamics that are common in so many of us, so that we might actually choose to act differently. Here, in this 6th week after Pentecost, when as a nation, the United States is celebrating 250 years of independence, which in many ways, while it is a mere blip in the history of time, 250 years of being principled according to a very different way that has been in the past, of being something called a democracy in which all are equal, in which a multiplicity of ways are welcomed. We may wrestle and struggle as United States citizens with what's that looking like? Is that really true? How is that really happening? And there's a long way that we have to go in truly embodying the principles of the founding fathers. Yet, there is a way that these beautiful and challenging 250 years of United States history is an experiment that had not yet been tried in the history of the world. There is a way that we can look back at our past so that we might be able to make peace with it in order to move forward in a positive new future. Let's pause, because that's a lot of food for thought, and a way that we can bring it back to ourselves as we pause for peace and go inward through the space of our hearts. Join me, if you will, in getting yourselves comfortable wherever you are in this great, big, amazing planet of the earth. See if you can bring your awareness to your feet and almost even see your bottoms of your feet opening and like melding right into the earth that is somewhere underneath them, so that you can like tie into that energetic connection with Mama Earth beneath you. Let's take a few deep breaths from the belly. Let's take a few more deep breaths from the belly. And as we're going to drop into the space of our heart, before we do so, if you also can be open to the energy that is beyond you, above the crown of your head. You might even link yourself in that way so that you are grounded here in the matter of the earth and you are open beyond the crown to the universal energy field beyond you, beyond matter. Take another deep breath, aware of both of those places, directions in which you are connected. And bring yourself back to the center of your chest, to the space of your heart, to this energy center that has the capacity to vibrate in this beautiful energy of unconditional love, innate harmony, full acceptance. Because as we get true about the past, this is the energy we need to bring, that we might be able to move forward in a healthy way into the future. So take another deep breath with awareness in the space of your heart. And settled in here now. If you haven't yet closed your eyes, you may do so, or just hold them with a soft gaze. Because our attention is going inward through the space of our heart into that deep pool of stillness. That we might turn towards the indwelling presence of God, the Spirit that is within, and ask it this simple question this week of the 5th of July. What in my past do I need to make peace with? Like, please, Holy Spirit of God, show me what in my past do I need to make peace with? Or with what in my past do I need to make peace, if you want to be using proper grammar. What in my past do I need to make peace with? Listen, see, notice, as the indwelling presence of the divine reveals to you. If you're starting to make a laundry list in your brain, drop back into your breath through your belly and into the space of your heart to listen. Be brave, be brave, be brave. Listen. Watch, notice, what in my past do I need to make peace with? You might even be visualizing yourself like pleading with the Holy Spirit of God. Show me, show me, show me what I need to make peace with in my past, because I truly want to be reconciled to that which I have experienced, to that which I have known, to what I have done, what others have done to me. I want to be reconciled with it all so that I can be truly free for a new, different kind of future. I invite you to take another deep breath. Hold it before you slowly release. And this time, as you release, inwardly, if you'll express some form of gratitude for what has been received, even if it's something you don't want to see, don't want to hear, don't want to notice, inwardly express some form of gratitude. Be courageous. Only when we come to terms with our past can we truly be ready for a beautiful new future. One in which we truly are free. Bringing our palms together near the center of our chest, in the pose of prayer pose, if you're aware of those beautiful prayer hands poses. So many know in yoga and so many know through years of prayer. Let us bow to one another. Bow to the holy mystery and this sense of gratitude before we bring our awareness back to this present moment, opening our eyes, getting grounded back right here in our bodies, wiggling your toes a little bit, wiggling your fingers. This pause for peace really reminds me of that energy of the Hindu goddess Kali. If you don't know of the Hindu goddess Kali, I think I've spoken of her before in Pause for Peace, but there's this energy understood as Kali, the goddess Kali, who, she's fierce. She is so dedicated to the truth and well-being of her beloved children that she will not allow us to dwell, to reside in falsity. She literally cuts through it all so that all illusion will be gone. And disillusioned, we actually can rise to be who we truly are. This energy of Kali, this Kali, Hindu goddess Kali energy, that is, it's fierce. It also can be known as very destructive, but it's destructive for a purpose. It actually cuts through our falsity so that we will be our authentic self. As we go forth from this pause for peace, this Sunday, July 5th, and the days that stretch out after the United States of America has celebrated its 250th anniversary of independence, And as we take with us these stories from Genesis that, a whole lot of people would have just kept under wraps, like shove that, like not so positive things off to the closet. We don't want that kind of stuff involved in our heroic tales of Father Abraham and Sister Sarah and like all of the beautiful ones who established this understanding of Judeo-Christian faith. Like we would rather like whitewash all of it, literally. The reality is the Spirit of God keeps it right there. In that same way that Kali will not abide any kind of falsity, it is there so that we can confront in ourselves those very same energies that are at play, those energies of self-survival, preservation of myself at all costs to another, those energies of jealousy that can arise, especially when we are living out of a scarcity mindset and in a construct of what we must be according to a certain set of ways. Those ways that we deny that we are all one united family of humankind, and even more so, one great creation. When we want to live contrary to those ways, all we have to do is pick up a copy of Genesis and start thumbing through story after story that helps us confront our own shadow, that keeps before us the ways that we all will do harm unless we wrestle with our past, reconcile, and come to a beautiful new future of peace. Blessings to you all throughout this week. I encourage you to continue to be brave, continue to be courageous, continue to find ways to be your beautiful, true, authentic self. Blessings, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Pause for Peace.